Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyantamirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapatakalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahaguna Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaurabhaktavan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachanam Pangam Kane Girim Tat Kripatamam Vande Shri Guru Ditaranam Paramanandamad Namah Shrimad Krishna Shabbatale Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Swami. Okay. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for joining. So we were doing for this the pre-work for this discussion was third chapter, the first set of verses. So as usual, we'll begin with Q&A. So if you have any questions based on what you have heard or read, we can discuss them now. Okay, Shri Padma, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much. I just have maybe one question in two parts. Sorry. The yoga ladder says karma kanda, then karma yoga, then jnana yoga, then it have ashtanga yoga, paramatma realization, bhakti yoga. And it says that karma yoga and jnana yoga are two wrong. They're not separate, but they're two wrongs. And then they lead to Ashtanga yoga. I know up to chapter 6, 3.16, they didn't really talk about Ashtanga yoga. But am I thinking right that Ashtanga yoga they're talking about is after you become purified, you start like meditating in the forest and taking in air, and is that, and then you realize Paramatma. Am I going the right way? And then the last one is they also talk about the cycle of sacrifice that the karma candies are supposed to do. All of us in the Vedas, the cycle of sacrifice is just offering everything to realize that there is a God. Is that this cycle of sacrifice? Thank you.
Okay, so I guess two questions. First question was with respect to Ashtanga Yoga. And the progression in that case is, as you were noting, that by the performance of Karmakand, one develops faith in the scriptures. So it's material, it's for piety. But where does the impetus for Karmakand come? Which is adherence to the scriptural injunctions, right? So through that one gets faith in the scriptures, gets elevated to the mode of goodness. through the performance of Nishkam karma, one becomes free of the karmic entanglement. Right, so one is no longer bound in the cycle of piety at that stage. So at the maturity of Karmkand, one begins to distinguish matter from spirit. Now, when Nishkam karma is maturing, then it gives rise to Gyan Yoga. Gyan Yoga is characterized by Atma Gyan, which is realization of the self, that Aham Brahmasmi, that I am the spirit soul. So in Gyan Yoga, one basically has complete control on the senses, because one has been able to make that distinction between the body and the soul. Since you don't identify with the body, you're no longer driven by the pushings of the material body. That is a prerequisite to Astanga Yoga. So when one starts Astanga Yoga, one already has complete control on the senses and is moving to the next stage, which is control of the mind. So Astanga Yoga starts from the platform of control of senses and matures to the stage of control of mind. Now, in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, in the Sankhya Yoga, Lord Kapila explains that Astanga Yoga is a means to an end. Devotees can perform Astanga Yoga to attain service of Krishna. Impersonalists can perform Astanga Yoga to get Brahman realization, or the yogis can perform Astanga Yoga for Paramatma realization. So it is essentially a means, and depending on where the person's conception is, and we'll study more of this in the 6th chapter, but the maturity of Astanga Yoga is that one is able to repose their consciousness, their thoughts into their chosen destination, which could be Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagwan, right? So the classic case of a devotee Astanga Yoga is Dhruv Maharaj. He was performing Astanga Yoga, but he was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and he was focusing on Krishna or Vishnu, which is by Vishnu. Okay. And the other case of Astanga Yoga is Atri, where he did not have a clear conception of, so he was performing Astanga Yoga, much more advanced than Dhruva, actually, performing Astanga Yoga, but without understanding, without a clear understanding of the conception. So then we know that, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiv, Lord Vishnu, they all came. So the understanding is that it's a means to an end. And why does Astanga Yoga come in the karma part of Bhagavad Gita? Then we'll study that when we reach the 6th chapter. Even though we have made this distinction, but still the acharyas have put it as part of the karma section, the first 6. Right? So we'll delve a little deeper into that. And I'm sorry, you had asked a question about Karma Kanda. Can you quickly repeat it?
Yeah, and thank you, Prabhu, so much for that understanding. The other one is it was also mentioned about the cycle of sacrifice in the Veda is offering everything to God. That's just a ritualistic.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Presha Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Verse 3.5 talks about going through a purificatory process to reach Krishna consciousness. And I was just thinking if the purificatory or purification process, if going through, bearing your fruits of your karma can also be part of the purification process. For example, things that happen to us out of your control, and then, you are growing from it. in Western psychology, you talk about it, that you're growing from whatever is happening to you. I don't know if I'm kind of saying it well, but I was just wondering if fruits of karma can fuel these purification process, if you can look at it like that.
Okay, so I'm just going to read out, I think, the part of the purport that you're referring to. This is the last paragraph of the purport.
3.5, yes, it says 3.5. So the purificatory process is necessary for reaching this point of Krishna consciousness. It's like maybe third or fourth line before the end.
Okay, so the point, Srila Prabhupada is making 2 points over here. I'm just going to read out the paragraph for the benefit of the others. So what Prabhupada says is that if someone takes to Krishna consciousness, even though he may not follow the prescribed duties in the Shastras or execute the devotional service properly, and even though he may fall down from the standard, there is no loss or evil for him. But if he carries out the injunctions for purification in the Shastras, what does it avail him if he is not Krishna conscious? So the purificatory process is necessary for reaching this point of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sannyas or any purificatory process is to help reach the ultimate goal of becoming Krishna conscious, without which everything is considered a failure. Right? So if you unpack this purport, and thank you for bringing this up, it's a very nice point Prabhupada makes. So he's making 2 points over here. The first point that he's making is that Krishna consciousness is not dependent on prior purification. So one can take to Krishna consciousness without having undergone prior purification. And purification specifically are the prescribed activities in the Vedas, right? So that's the first point Prabhupada is making. That's the Takta Swadharmam Charanam Bhujarare, that's the verse Prabhupada is quoting. That in order to execute bhakti or Krishna consciousness, one does not have to undergo prior purification, right? Second point that he's making, I guess there are 3 points here. The second point that he's making is that if one undergoes purificatory process and does not take to Krishna consciousness, then it's a waste. It's useless. So if one simply follows the rituals of the Vedas, the Karmakand part of it, develops piety, but does not take to Krishna consciousness, then that endeavor is, in the ultimate perspective, is considered to be futile. So the implicit question that comes over here is, if bhakti is not dependent on purification, and purification without taking to Krishna consciousness is a waste, then why does Krishna even give this? And this is actually one of the topics in today's presentation also, that why does even Krishna give purificatory process in the Vedas? And Prabhupada answers that because it is conducive. So the purificatory process is neither a necessary or a sufficient condition, but it is a conducive situation. So case in point being that we get up in the morning and chant. Why do we chant in the morning? Because morning times, especially the Brahma Muhurta time, that is more conducive to spiritual practices. Now, one can chant in the afternoon, one can chant in the evening. The potency is there in chanting. But still, we take help from the attendant purificatory process. Like we follow the 4 regulative principles, there is no Krishna in any of the 4 regulative principles. But yet we follow them because that purification is conducive to Krishna consciousness. right? So these 3 points are packed in this small paragraph that you bought. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I think what you're saying is doesn't matter. What's more important is that it's conducive to the overall, I guess, yeah, Krishna consciousness, achieving
Correct.
Krishna consciousness.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so Mataji, go ahead.
Mataji, you're on mute, Suman Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, my question is, based upon Bhagavad Gita, we have 4 different varnas, like Kshatriya, Brahman. But in today's world, if we look at, in today's era, how do we know which varna do we belong to? Like, what's our duty?
Okay, it's an excellent question. So in the 4th chapter, Krishna will say Chaturvarnya Maya Shrestha Guna Karma Vibhagasha, that one acquires a certain varna based on guna, one's qualities, and karma, one's activities. So Prabhupada makes this point that even if there is no formal declaration of the varnashram system, the nature of the society is that it divides itself in the varnas. So there are some people who are naturally, they are intellectual, they take to teaching, they're more Brahmanical. Some people join the army, the defense forces, they're more administrators. Some people are traders, and some people like more to take orders and follow them. So there is a natural division of the society, regardless of a formal allocation of the varnas. That's one point. Second point is, in the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada makes this point always, that Kalau Shudra Sambhavati, that everybody in this age of Kali is a Shudra. So this question of, is there anybody who is a Brahman or a Kshatriya? The answer is no. Because strictly speaking, Varna means you go through the various samskars, and like for a Brahman, go to the Gurukul, serve the Guru, follow a strictly celibate life, live, the brahmacharis are supposed to live by begging. So there are fairly prescriptive injunctions in terms of allocating one to a particular varna. And in the age of Kali, that is not there. There is no specific execution of samskars. Even if they are essentially more like social purposes rather than actually for the real purpose. So one can assume that in the age of Kali, everybody is a Shudra, which takes us to the next point, then what is the qualification for executing the Vedic injunctions? And that's why the point is made that following the Vedas in this age of Kali is impossible. So Mahaprabhu gave us the Harinam Sankirtan, which everybody can take to. Is that okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Very nice question. Naval Krishna Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanur Pranam. Prabhu, like Krishna says that by doing Karma Kanda, slowly one is getting purified, because finally Krishna has given the Vedas. So when one is doing Karma Kanda, he's slowly getting purified. And he is also recommending against show butter spiritualism, where somebody is not purified, but he is renounced and his mind is dwelling upon the sense objects. So, but if in that case he's taking the holy name, even suppose he is not purified and his mind is dwelling on the sense objects, but he's taking the holy name, so isn't he getting also purified by namabhas? So, what is the difference between the two processes of purification?
So the difference is that in the 3rd chapter, Krishna has yet not appeared. The holy name has not appeared. So when it's talking about Falgu Vairagya, It's not talking about a person who's following devotional service. Right? It's talking about a person who is renouncing to follow the more traditional varnashram system. So when they're renouncing externally. Internally, the mind is still focused on the sense objects. So the purificatory effect of the renunciation is not there. Right? The potency, the point you're making that bhakti will act even if it is not performed perfectly, that appears. So a glimpse of that appeared, in the second chapter, verse 40. What's that verse? Neha brikamarash Shastri pratvayo na vidyate. Right? So there it appeared very briefly. But really speaking, bhakti will start appearing only the first glimpse will appear in the 4th chapter, but it really starts appearing in the 7th chapter, right? When the potency of Krishna and his name will appear. Right now, the focus is mostly on the Karam Kand aspect of Varnashram. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me see, how are we doing with time? Okay, so I'm going to forego my questions and we'll go to the presentations. I think I took a little bit more time in the Q&A. So we'll start whenever group 1 is ready. We'll start with the group 1.
Okay, Mataji, I'm sharing the screen.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, everyone. The topic of our discussion is, if all karma is bad karma, isn't it best to abstain from karma? Sorry about that.
We can see your screen, Prabhuji, but we
Yeah,
cannot see
sorry.
you.
Yes. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome to today's debate on the topic, if all karma is bad karma, isn't it best to abstain from karma? We have two esteemed speakers with us today arguing in favor of abstaining from karma. We have Ms. Priyanka on the opposing side, advocating the importance of performing prescribed duties. We have Ms. Shobha. Let's begin with Ms. Priyanka's opening statement. Priyanka Mataji, can you? Priyanka Mataji?
Prabhu, you can read for Priyanka Mataji and I can do
No,
my
no,
part.
I am here.
Are you
I'm
there?
extremely
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't know how I dropped off the call. Okay. Thank you, esteemed moderator. Hare Krishna, everyone. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that all karma, even if performed without attachment, leads to bondage and suffering. As it is said in chapter 3, verse 4, not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. This indicates that all actions have consequences, potentially leading to further entanglement in the cycle of birth and death. Therefore, it logically follows that the best course of action is to abstain from karma entirely to avoid perpetuating this cycle of material entanglement and suffering.
Thank you, Ms. Priyanka, and thank you to everyone present. While it is true that karma can lead to bondage if performed with attachment to results, Krishna also teaches us in the Bhagavad Gita that abstaining from karma altogether is not the solution. In chapter 3, verse 8, Krishna says, "Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working." One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. This verse emphasizes the necessity of performing one's duties, as inaction is not a viable path. By performing karma without attachment to the results, one can attain spiritual growth and liberation.
Thank you, Ms. Shobha. Ms. Priyanka, how do you respond to Krishna's teachings on performing karmas as one's duty?
While Krishna emphasizes the performance of duty, he also highlights the dangers of attachment. In chapter 3, verse 6, it is stated, "One who restrains the senses, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender." This indicates that even if one performs duties, the mind may remain entangled in desires and material concerns, leading to negative karma. Abstaining from karma allows one to focus solely on spiritual pursuits and detach from material entanglements.
Respectfully, Ms. Priyanka, Krishna's instructions are clear that mere renunciation without proper engagement is insufficient. In chapter 3, verse 9, Krishna says, "Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage." By offering the results of our actions to the Supreme, one transcends the bondage of karma and receives and achieves spiritual liberation.
Thank you to both speakers for their thoughtful insights. In conclusion, let's hear final remarks from each speaker, starting with Ms. Shobha.
Thank you, everyone, for this engaging debate. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us that abstaining from karma is not the path to liberation. Instead, performing one's prescribed duties selflessly as an offering to the Supreme allows one to attain spiritual growth and eventual liberation from the cycle of birth and death.
Thank you, Ms. Shobha. Now, Ms. Priyanka, your final remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for this enlightening discussion. While performing karma as a duty may lead to temporary spiritual growth, true liberation can only be achieved by transcending karma and focusing solely on spiritual pursuits, as outlined in the Bhagavad Gita.
Thank you to both speakers for their insightful contributions to this debate. Dear devotees, please take time to reflect on these perspectives and draw your own conclusions from the profound teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Group 1. Nice and succinct and to the point. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go on to Group 2.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna, everyone. Accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. In Kali Yuga, the action of the body matter, not the mind. So, what is the harm of Falgu? Vairagya, debate. So, this is our topic. There are two characters in the debate: a spiritual seeker who is pursuing his spiritual quest. The other is a devotee who is practicing Krishna Bhakti. The spiritual seeker and the devotee have already met with each other at a multi-faith convention, and now they are friends. This debate is between two friends on how to advance in spiritual life. Pravin Prabhu?
That's your spiritual seeker.
You
Prabhu,
are on
that's
mute.
your role. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Spiritual seeker. That's you, Prabhu. Can you?
So, you think living in a secluded place will help you in your spiritual quest?
Yes, of course. I have read many Vedic scriptures, and what I learned is that when a spiritual seeker needs enlightenment, he goes to the forest for meditation. Also, I have seen many yogis meditating in the forest, and I think they are advanced in spiritual life. Prabhuji, I can't hear you.
Should somebody else play the role of devotee from group 2?
Yeah, Prasad Mataji.
But you are married, right? Also, what about your son and daughter? They are pretty young too, and so is your wife. How will they survive if you leave them alone? Have you thought about it?
Yes, I gave a serious thought about it. Scriptures say that when one is pursuing the path of spiritual enlightenment, one can leave the house and all the responsibilities. I still love them, but I need to cut these material attachments for my spiritual life.
Well, I haven't read all the Vedic scripture like you, but I definitely read the Bhagavad Gita under a bona fide spiritual leader. And does it authorize you to go to worship in present situation?
Oh, really? What does Bhagavad Gita say about my present situation?
I think you are trying to run away from your responsibilities. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 3.4 says that not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation. Also, can one attain perfection. Srila Prabhupada, the founder of Acharya of ISKCON temple, which I am associated with, says in the purport to this verse that renounced order of life can be accepted when one has been purified by discharge of prescribed form of duties which are laid down just to purify the hearts of materialistic men. Without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life, sannyasa. Better than that prescribed duty is the transcendental service of Lord Sri Krishna. You don't have to adopt to forest austerity by simple practicing Krishna consciousness from your home. Activities in Krishna consciousness is deity worship, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, offering bhoga, reading bona fide Vaishnava scripture, cleaning Lord temples, serving devotee, etc. Krishna consciousness is itself a purifying process, and by the direct method of devotional service, it is simultaneously very easy and sublime. Bhagavad Gita 3.3 purport.
But I want to renounce everything now. I don't think I am moving forward in my spiritual life.
My friend, like you said earlier, you are still attached to your wife and children, so don't give up your prescribed duties carelessly. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3.6 that one who restrains the senses of action but whose mind dwells on sense objects certainly delivers himself and is called pretender. Srila Prabhupada in the purport further elaborates this and says that he this cheating and such pretenders' mind is always impure. I think it is better for you to stay in house with your family and practice Krishna Bhakti.
So you think there is no way I can make spiritual advancement if I take sannyas?
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3.5 that everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. If the spirit soul doesn't find engagement in Krishna Bhakti, then he will be engaged by illusionary energy. So you may be able to practice forest meditation for a while, but eventually there will be a fall down as you are not engaging your senses in Krishna Bhakti. In my view, you will find another beautiful woman and start a new family in the forest.
I'm getting why you are against me taking sannyas. What should I do then? Can you please guide?
Please go back to your wife and children, practice Krishna Bhakti and try to inspire the whole family. Most importantly, for the Kali Yuga, Veda recommended performing Sankirtana Yajna, which is the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Offer your food to Krishna and eat the remnant of the Lord, which is called the Krishna Prasada. In this way, you will gradually advance in spiritual life without going anywhere.
Thank you very much for the guidance. I am now going
Where are you going now?
to the temple to get the beads and the bead bag. I need to start chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare,
Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. I see it's an interesting perspective. I think you perhaps missed the
Yeah.
purport of the question. The question was a little different from, I think you made it a discussion between Bhakti and conventional varnashram, and you definitely did a good job explaining that. But the question was more in terms of, if you look at the question, it was if mental offenses do not count in Kali Yuga, then what is the harm in Falgu Vairagya? So the understanding of Falgu Vairagya, or Krishna condemns Falgu Vairagya because the person is performing mental offenses, right? That's the whole understanding of Falgu Vairagya, that he may be, by body, he may be performing actions, but in his mind, he may be focusing on material things like wife or whatever. But in Kali Yuga, if mental offenses do not count, then does that mean that Falgu Vairagya should not be condemned in Kali Yuga? And the answer to that would be a little different from what you have presented. But nevertheless, I think you presented a good perspective of it from the Bhakti aspect. Okay, let's move on to group 3.
Thank you, Vasant Prabhu. Haribol, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Very well.
Okay. My name is Shafali. Myself and Jay Gaura Prabhu are going to be talking about the cycle of yagya. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this slide is just depicting in a picture fashion the cycle of yagya, which you can start by talking about prescribed duties, also known as yagyas. A lot of people think maybe yagyas are just fire sacrifices. That's what we usually think of yagyas as, but yagyas actually include all prescribed duties according to the Vedas. So if you do your prescribed duties, then the demigods will be pleased, rains will come, then from rains, grains will grow. And then after that, when all the living entities, human beings eat the grains, there's nourishment and vitality come from that. And then that further makes humans be able to continue doing their prescribed duties. So it goes in a cycle. Next slide, please. Some more details about prescribed duties. There's 5 types of basic prescribed duties that Prabhuji was talking about in his lecture. The 5 types, the first one is worship of the scriptures or the sages by studying the scriptures with your intelligence. That's the real worship of the scriptures. The second is worship of your parents or forefathers, also known as Pitra Yagya. One example is Shravan, for example, from the Ramayana. He was taking care of his elderly parents really well as part of his prescribed duties. And another example would be like offering pind to your forefathers in Shraddh ceremony to departed ancestors. The third type of basic yagya is Deva Yagya, or worshipping demigods. One example is that in Vrindavan, Nanda Maharaj and all the inhabitants of Vrindavan were getting ready to do worship and sacrifice for Indra before Krishna was talking to them about worshiping Govardhan Hill. The fourth type would be Manushya Yagya, or service to humanity. That would be like basic charity work, feeding the poor, building hospitals. And the last is Bhuta Yagya, or offering your services to living creatures. For example, a lot of times I remember my mom would say to give leftover bread or food to birds or other, creatures, so that they can also be benefited. So all of these yagyas are to please the demigods, essentially. It also pleases Krishna indirectly also, because he's the one who has produced the instructions in the Vedas, but it's directly to please the demigods. The next slides are going to talk more about the cycle, and Jay Gora Prabhu is going to take over from here. Next slide, please.
Thank you. So we've got a little infographic here. So we're talking about this cycle, the interaction, self-sustaining here, and it goes back and forth between us and Krishna also. So this is just rains and grains. It's something I think anybody can kind of understand, that for having this kind of grains growing, you're needing rain. Anybody who's been around plants would know that. We can go to the next. So part of that cycle is the nourishment and vitality for the living entities. Grains, we're eating, even Prabhupada points out in one of the reports here for 314 that even if you're eating animals, those are subsisting on the grains. All the living creatures, animals, sustain on grains. And that gives us strength to continue doing our prescribed duties and perpetuating that cycle. It also gives nourishment to our bodies, the finer tissues of the brains, and helps us function optimally to do those services. An example of that is milk from cows, which are fed by grains. So the grains nourish the cow, gives the milk, which helps to nourish us. Next slide, please. So why is this yagna cycle important? When the cycle is maintained, it brings order to human affairs and universal affairs. Again, it's going up to the demigods and Krishna coming back through us. When prescribed duties are not done, Krishna considers these humans to be thieves because they're enjoying the grains and things without contributing. By following the prescribed duties as outlined in the Vedas, which are injunctions and instructions given by Krishna himself, the human being has gradual spiritual elevations. So it helps us step up, and gradually develop spiritually. And if there's no progression in spiritual elevation and understanding, then the human life is wasted or lived in vain. That's what the purpose of this human life is to get that Krishna consciousness. So that's what we had for the cycle of yagna. All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So now I know if I have to get a slick PowerPoint made, who should I go to? I think I really like your graphics and crisp presentation. Very good. And I think you presented the subject matter also in a very, very pointed, very easy to understand. So excellent. Well done. So let's move on to the next group.
Let me share my screen. Hare Krishna Shivaji Prabhu, over to you.
Hare Krishna everyone. Today our presentation is about convincing a person on the importance of offering bhoga to the Lord. A conversation between the devotee and non-devotee. Non-devotee visits a devotee friend's home after many months.
Hare Krishna Sanjay. Seeing you after a long time. Please come inside.
Yes, it has been few months. How are you all doing?
We are doing fine by Krishna's mercy. How about you?
We are also doing good. How is work and everything else going on?
Work is all right. A little busy with ISKCON programs and temple activities.
Oh, okay.
Every every Saturday, we are having a program at the temple. Please try to come and attend the program.
Sure, we will come once.
Could you please wait a minute? I offer boga and come back to you.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
No issues. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. What is it?
What is the meaning of boga?
A good question. Fruits, nuts, pure vegetarian food, which has been prepared for the pleasure of the Lord Krishna with devotion and love, is called boga.
Okay, got it. Why do we need to offer boga to the Lord?
The fact is that Lord Krishna provides all raw materials. Therefore, everything belongs to Lord Krishna. We need to use the raw materials to prepare something and offer it for his pleasure and take that as prasadam.
Understood. Is Lord going to honor the boga?
Yes, of course. Preparing and offering boga to the Lord shows our devotion and gratitude. Lord Krishna will accept everything which we offer with love and devotion, but we cannot see everything with our material eyes.
Wow. Can I ask you one more question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Earlier you have called bhoga, now you are calling it as prasadam. What is the difference between them?
Boga is food which is not yet offered to Lord Krishna. Offered food is called boga. Offered boga is called prasadam. It is the remnants of food offered to the Lord Krishna, which Lord Krishna has tasted and enjoyed it. Because the Lord Krishna has honored boga, it becomes prasadam. Prasadam is not a material thing.
Nice. What is the benefit of having prasadam?
Krishna is providing the foodstuff for our benefit, cultivating more consciousness of what you are eating, nourishing the body spiritually, purifying the heart, cleansing sinful reactions, degenerating envy, anger, and lust, accumulating spiritual piety when prasadam is given and honored. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3.13, Yajna Sishtasinah Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Bishai. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice.
Wonderful. Why only vegetarian? Why can't we offer non-veg?
Based on Bhagavad Gita, one should focus on karma and dharma. It is violent to kill an animal for food. There is ample supply of grains, vegetables, fruits, and milk. Vegetarian food considered as sattvic, which promotes purity and spiritual growth. Offering sattvic food to Krishna aligns the desire to maintain purity in devotional process.
Oh, okay. Then vegetable also have life. Is that not seen by eating them?
Yes, vegetables have life. As per Bhagavad Gita, Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. The act of killing the act of killing plants involves some level of harm. By offering plant-based food to the Lord and then taking it as prasadam, the act is sanctified and considered free of sin. The practice aligns with the principles of ahimsa, dharma, and devotion, guiding practitioners towards a balanced and ethical way of living. Scriptures provide a lot of information about this question. We will discuss in detail when we meet next time.
Thank you very much for clarifying. I'm convinced. From now onwards, I will try to offer bhoga to the Lord before I eat. Please let me know how to offer bhoga to the Lord.
That is good to hear. Let us honor prasadam together, and while having prasadam, I will explain in detail. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Very good. I think it's a very balanced debate. I like the points you made. I just wanted to offer two points for correction. One was definition of bhoga is bhoga literally means enjoyment. Bhog. So devotees, for them, the object of so Krishna is the enjoyer. So Krishna is doing the bhog. That's the difference. But bhoga does not. I think you said bhoga is food that is performed for, that is there for the enjoyment of the Lord. That is the consciousness of the devotee. But the literal meaning of bhoga is for enjoyment. Oh. And second is you said Jiva Jivasya Jivanam. It's not from Bhagavad Gita. It's from the Bhagavatam. It's a verse from the first canto, 13th chapter. I believe it's somewhere in the 40s, the conversation between Narad Muni and Yudhishthira Maharaj. It comes there. So it's a line from the verse in the Bhagavatam.
Sure. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, let's move on to the next verse. Next group.
Hare Krishna. So topic is group 5. If Krishna recommends against karma kanda, why does the Vedas talk about it? So we have a it's a conversation between two persons, a devotee and person. Start. So in Bhagavad Gita 247, Krishna clearly recommends against karma kanda. It says you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. He introduces the concept of nishkam karma. This means you have to do your prescribed duties, but not be attached to the results. Further, you cannot not do your duty. Then again in Bhagavad Gita 3.10, he switches back to karma kanda, which forms the majority of the Vedas. So this seems like a contradiction to me.
So, well, there is no contradiction. See that's the spectrum with different color. Krishna goes from the lowest platform in the adherence to the Vedas, Sakam Karma, to the highest end of the spectrum, Bhakti. Just like the spectrum, there are different people with different shades. Not all beings can take to the Bhakti. Bhakti involves relationship and the everyone's not ready to surrender. For these persons, Krishna gives a new option, Nishkam Karma. But not all can take to Nishkam Karma. So Krishna speaks about Sakam Karma.
But most of the Vedas deal with karma kanda. Krishna says the purpose of Vedas is to understand him. Vedescha sarver aham eva vedya. So, if Krishna recommends against karma kanda, why is Vedas even talking about it?
So I think you missed the point. Let me further clarify. Krishna is following a carrot and stick approach. If you do the prescribed duties, you will attain heavenly kingdom of fame, Sakam Karma. If you do not, you will suffer sin and criticism, Vikarma or Falgu Vairagya. Therefore, the Vedas can accommodate the whole spectrum of people. Therefore, this Sakam Karma is emphasized so that people can at least follow the Vedas instead of acting in Vikarma or Falgu Vairagya. In Bhagavad Gita 3.11, Krishna says that yajna or sacrifices are necessary to please the demigods. And when demigods are pleased, there shall be prosperity. So by doing Sakam Karma, one is purified. When one performs Yajna, the chief beneficiary Vishnu or Krishna. Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. Performance of Yajna slowly purifies one's existence and memory. Then one can think of liberation and follow the path of Krishna consciousness.
Okay, so I can follow somewhat, but why is the majority of the Vedas dealing with karma kanda then?
Nice question, Prabhu. Majority of the Vedas deal with karma kanda, worship of demigods. The demigods are very quick in giving material favors. Therefore, majority of the population is interested in karma kanda, quick benefit. But Krishna plays a trick. He allows people to do karma kanda, but since they do it as per Vedic injunction, which come from Krishna, therefore there is a spiritual advancement.
So the jiva is performing karma as per the Vedic directions, which is called yajna. So because yajna is performed, there are rains, and because the demigods are pleased. Because of rains, there is ample food. Food gives vitality to the jiva, who again does karma. So this cycle goes on and on. But when the jiva is doing karma as per the Vedas, he is essentially following Krishna.
Okay. So we are going round and round. If by performing karma kanda one gets purified, why Krishna criticizes karma kanda and thereby the Vedas also?
That is because although the Vedas are suboptimal, but Krishna doesn't want to leave anyone behind. He is so kind that he wants everyone to come back to him. So he devises this trick for those who are materially engrossed. By doing karma kanda, following the Vedas, they shall make spiritual advance. Of course, our founder Acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada says that following the Vedic injunction is not possible in this age because Vedas are mostly absent and society is not conducive. Therefore, there is another channel of purification recommended by for this age, Bhakti, which is more potent, and the only yajna for this age is Sankirtan yajna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay, very good, Prabhus. I think you covered all the points very well. The only one point I'd like to make is that you started off by saying that 247 is Krishna condemning Karmakand. It is actually the opposite. 247 is Krishna glorifying Karmakand. When he says that you have the right to perform your prescribed duties essentially Karmakand. So some of the verses that you may refer is actually they appear in the second chapter. And the verse that would probably be the poster child for this is the verse 45 in second chapter. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistragun Bhavarjuna Nirdvanto Nityasto Niryokshamatana. That the Vedas, they deal mainly with the three modes of material nature, you become transcendental to it. Or 242 Yam Imam Pushpitam Vacham Pravadhyante Pashyata. So these are the poster verses where Krishna is condemning Karma Kanda. But I think the way that you built the logic, the verses you quoted later on, and bringing forth the main point that two reasons Karma Kanda is there. One is so that people who are not able to take to the higher purpose of the Vedas, they also have a mode of engagement. And the second is that by following Karma Kanda, one is protected from vikarma and purified. So I think you brought those 2 points very nicely. And I also liked the cleanliness of your slide and the flow. So good job. Okay, let's move on to the next group.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So for our group, our topic is, I've never heard the Vedas. Will I be penalized for not following it? First, let's look at why follow the Vedas. Based on Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, verse 11, Jivas, according to the Vedas, get their prescribed duties and they perform yagnas. From yagnas comes rain. From rain comes the food, and food vitalizes the Jivas. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, verse 12, Sri Krishna declares that the Vedas come from him. So when the Jivas follow the Vedas, they follow the injunction of the Lord. Yoga ladder. Here is the yoga ladder with Karma Yoga being the first step towards spiritual advancement, followed by Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Yoga ladder in detail. As we can see in this graphic, the Karma Kanda allows us to progress towards practicing Karma Yoga. Sri Krishna gives this for those who are not able to take to the higher form. But by performing Karma Kanda, the Jivas get material opulences and at the same time progress spiritually. The bottommost rank of yoga ladder is Vikrama. This is akin to animal life. What happens when we do not follow the Vedas? By following the Vedas, we get material opulence. Thus, not following it will result in lack of material opulences on an individual level. Not following Vedas in collective karma result in natural disaster like famine, drought, storms, and such. The next section will be covered by Jyoti Mataji. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. So we have established what happens when we follow the Vedas. And so the question arises, will I be penalized for not following the Vedas when I'm not aware of it? If I don't know anything about it, then am I going to be punished for it? So to establish this answer, we want to take an example of a child playing with fire. Will he get burnt? Srila Prabhupada says, and we have noted it even in our practical example, is that if you touch fire, you'll get burnt. So Srila Prabhupada says, if a child touches fire without knowing the effect, he must be burnt, even though he is only a child. If a child violates the law of nature, there is no compassion. So basically, nobody is above the laws of nature, so we cannot claim ignorance. Same goes for somebody that is driving on the road and does not follow the rules of the road. Are they going to be penalized? Are they going to be hurt? Are they going to face financial trouble? Yes, they are. I don't know the traffic laws. Will I get hurt or be held responsible for my poor driving? Of course, you are going to be. So before we start driving, we have to learn the laws of the land. For example, if you want to drive in Australia, you would have to drive on left. Same goes for India. Same goes for many countries of the world. But if you come to the US and you start driving on the left, then you cannot claim ignorance. You are going to be penalized for not following the laws of the road. So when the universe is created, Sri Vishnu sends along the Vedas in order to guide us. This is established in the Bhagavad Gita. It is our responsibility as the human race to learn the laws of the land in order to be able to follow it. Ignorance is not bliss, as opposed to what we have always been told, ignorance is bliss. Srila Prabhupada's famous quotes on this topic is in a conversation that happens when somebody asks him, what about the person who is not aware of God? Prabhupada just plainly says, then he is an animal. And what about the innocent people? Well, the animal is very innocent. If you cut its throat, it won't protest. So innocence is not a very good qualification. Can you tell me again what intelligence is? Prabhupada ji again says, intelligence means one who knows what he is, what is this world, what is God, what are the interrelations, he is intelligent. The animal does not know what he is. He thinks about that he is the body. Similarly, anyone who does not know what he is not intelligent. So one can think that, okay, I've been born in the wrong religion. I've never heard of the Vedas. All is doom and gloom. I'm never going to learn it. I'm going to be punished for all eternity. And Prabhupada again clarifies, Srila Prabhupada says, however sinful a man may be, if he receives knowledge from the proper spiritual master and repents his past activities in his sinful life and stops them, he immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. So there is hope. There is some light at the end of this tunnel. As humans, we've been blessed with a superior intellect. Let's use that intellect. Let's inquire what is the truth about who we are. Let's try and learn what our duty is and incorporate that into our true identity and chase up to our ultimate goal. If we don't try to understand God and learn to love Him, then we are going to be no better than animals. And just like in the previous examples, if we touch fire, we are going to get burnt. If we don't drive properly, we are going to get hurt. Just like that, if we claim ignorance of the scriptures, we are going to be hurt. Hare Bo, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, very nice. I think you covered all the salient points. One point that probably would have also been helpful here is that so obviously less than 10% of the world population follows Hinduism. So does it mean that the 90% of the remaining population is condemned? I mean, they're either unaware of the Vedas, or even if they're aware, they don't follow it. And Prabhupada was very clear about it, that if one is following their own, it's a bona fide religion and they're following it sincerely, then they're as good as followers of Vedas. Right? So when he would have discussions with Christian priests, then he would make this point that, everything that's spoken in the Bible, there is a correspondence to what is spoken in the Vedas. They are not divergent. Like the priest would say that you want everybody to become Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada would say, no, I want everybody to be God conscious. If you're a Christian, I want you to be a good Christian. If you're a Muslim, I want you to be a good Muslim. So Bhaktisiddhanta made this point that the same body of Vedas, they manifest as different works in different religions. And when one is following their own respective bona fide religion in a sincere way, it is as good as following the Vedas. Right? So that's another point that would be relevant over here. Okay, thank you very much. Excellent. I know we're a little bit over time, so I'll hand it over to Ruparagnath Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. And I'm going to share my screen for a small discussion. I hope my screen is visible. So, first of all, thank you everyone for your participation and nice presentations. Couple of ground rules that I just wanted to remind. One, please try to stay within your stipulated time of 4 to 5 minutes per presentation. That actually allows for a little bit more room for discussion or feedback from Prabhuji, which make it more rounded. So that helps. And the second is try to keep your camera on during the class, especially when you're presenting. I think it helps and shows your engagement level if your camera is on. So just wanted to make these two ground rules and points. And I'll post the topics for the next week's class in the WhatsApp group as well. But just for everybody's awareness, next week we'll be covering the next set of verses from chapter 3. And these are the 6 topics for the presentations.
So next week is pretty straightforward. So I think there's not much of debating or unraveling the question. So these are the set of verses that are allocated to the group. Take your, within your 5 minutes, explain to the rest of the class, elaborate on what the point is being made. So to help you, I've given the highlight over here, and I've obviously spoken about it in the lecture also. So it would basically serve as a refresher, as reinforcement for the class.
I think that is it, Prabhuji, for today. Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, so we will end over here. And again, apologies for exceeding the time. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnavind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
This great Bhayahari Prabhuji ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
The recording has